Hello there, you're watching the midday update at 12 p.m. We're coming to you live from the city center. As usual, I'm Jessy Chahal. Thanks for being with me. Today I have two guests on the program. Firstly, I speak to Professor Dr. DENISON JAYASOORIA. He's a sociologist, and I will be talking about the call for cooperation nationally. If you want to know more, do stick around for that. Also, to Professor Tan Sri Dr. SHARIFAH HAPSAH, President of the National Council of Women's Organizations, NCWO, in conjunction with National Women's Day or Hari Wanita. Now, first things first, from the desk of the Prime Minister, he has announced that the cabinet lineup will be shared this week. This list will be presented to the King for His Majesty consent first and foremost. Now, it will not be a unity government that involves the opposition, elected representatives. For now, that's what we know. Cooperation with them, referring to the opposition, he says, does not mean that they will be in the cabinet, but they can play their role individually by channeling ideas through the Special Committee on COVID-19 and the National Recovery Council. Also, various rumors have been circulating. Perhaps you've got news or whiff of this as well about the cabinet lineup, who's in it and who's not. But here's a quick and a gentle reminder. Please do not be taken into this. We do not know if this is verified or not. The public has also been urged to not believe any of these rumors at this point. Now, in his inaugural speech, Prime Minister Dato' Ismail Sabri had offered room to the opposition leaders to join the Special Committee on COVID-19 as well as on the National Recovery Council as well. But more on that when we get more news, as I await my following guest, Professor Dr. DENISON, to join us. I'd just like to share that, of course, we talk about the recovery of the nation post the response. We know that herd immunity is to be achieved in a few months, come October. That's also when schools will reopen. So we have a lot of good things ahead of us that's happening so that we can resume to normalcy. But at this point, we still need to keep to our SOPs and adhere as much as we can. The Malaysian Youth Council is telling the Prime Minister that he must continue with the Undi 18 agenda. Its President, Julfitri Johar, says the implementation of Undi 18 was the hope and aspiration of young people to actively participate in electing the country's leaders. Malaysia needs young people who, of course, have ideas and opinions, and also that of whom can provide constructive criticism to together help the government in the current difficult situation. Fresh blood, young blood, equally capable. So perhaps this is something the Prime Minister must continue or must consider at this point. Of course, I have Professor Dr. DENISON who will be joining us shortly. But at this point of time, I'd like to bring in on our topic of hope and inspiration and pillars of society as we recover, none other than the women folk of the country, in conjunction with National Women's Day, which is happening tomorrow on the 25th of August. Today, I'm joined by Professor Tan Sri Dr. SHARIFAH HAPSAH, President of the National Council of Women's Organizations, NCWO. Of course, it's a pleasure to speak to you, Tan Sri. First things first, Selamat Hari Wanita.
Thank you, Jessy, and Selamat Hari Wanita to you too. Of course, it's tomorrow, but we can celebrate the whole month.
That's right. I mean, it's a say, right? Every day is one
whole
way
lifetime.
That's right. Of the many, many hats that women wear, but it's important to highlight some of the issues affecting women during these, unprecedented times as well. This year's theme is Wanita Berjuang Menghapus COVID-19 with its hashtag Women on the Front Lines. And as I read that, it really struck a note with me because women have been on the front lines, and on different sorts of fronts. Even if it's a domestic front line, we are still there. Let's talk a little bit about Hari Wanita this year, Tan Sri. What is its significance, and perhaps also why is it celebrated on the 25th of August?
Let's start with the historical part first. 25th of August was selected, the date was selected by our first Prime Minister, Tunku Abdul Rahman, when a group of women, very dedicated women, Tun Fatimah, Dato' FR Bupalan, and a few others, 8 of them, from 8 organizations. They wanted to form a national body, which now is called NCWO. But one of the things they said they must do for advocacy and for advancement of women is to make sure women are recognized. And that's why they thought of Hari Wanita to commemorate and to remember what women have done for the country and can continue to do for the country's development. And this was in 1960. You must remember, a long time ago is time of our mothers and grandmothers, you know. And so when they got together and they say, okay, the first we will do Hari Wanita. And that's a Hari Wanita is in the NCWO constitution. It's one of the objectives and we've never removed it. We will always celebrate it. So they went to see our Prime Minister. And at that time, you know, there was no women's machinery, you know, on the government side. It's only the NGO that was active. And so they went to see Tunku Abdul Rahman. And he said, yes, we will have the day, but we will celebrate Women's Day first before we celebrate independence. So that's why the date a week before independence was given as Hari Wanita. So he really gave importance to women. You know, this is nice history. We record it, you know. If not, we will forget. I didn't hear it, you know. It was Tun Fatimah and F.R. Bupalan's generation. But we've recorded it and we've always remembered this. So it's always to commemorate the contributions of women and women's successes. That's the day we remember. But it's a day that we also renew our commitment for the advancement of women, for equality, for justice, for peace, and for harmony. Because women, we don't forget, you know, we just don't talk about personal or individual development. We always think of the nation, we think of the world, and that's why peace and harmony and development come together with justice and advancement for women.
That's right. You know, a lot of times these things go unnoticed or perhaps not really talked about in mainstream media. I must say over the past maybe 5 or 10 years, there has been a lot more awareness on some of the sacrifices or the silent sacrifices that women make on a daily basis. Let's talk about this year's theme, Tan Sri, Women on the Front Lines. Of course, that also brings the topic of the impact of COVID on women. We know that women and children, in fact, have had to bear the brunt of this, of this pandemic, of the lockdown. They've been the hardest hit.
Yeah. First, I must tell you that every year when we have our theme, it's really looking at what's happening in the country. You know, sometimes it's to say, oh, we have Dasar Negara, Dasar Wanita, whatever, you know. But last year, we also looked at COVID because we felt COVID was having a big impact. But last year was more about the impact of COVID. This year, we are looking more at what can we do to make sure we will eliminate COVID, like we eliminated smallpox and so on, you know. So what's the role of women there? So we're going to start Hari Wanita with a webinar which will examine this issue. So we looked at impact first, psychosocial impact. We look at the economic impact, the health impact on women by 3 speakers, Datuk HAPSAH, Dr. Rahim, and Professor Sharifah Izzat, I think, these 3. And then will be followed by Tan Sri Jamilah Mahmud, who will then look at the strategies and how women can play a big role in these strategies, particularly for recovery. Yeah, not to really contain, not only contain, to totally eliminate it, yeah, if we can. I'm being told that because, you know, the variants come so rapidly, there are so many variants, and you know the vaccines we give, some don't work, some work against the variants, so it's going to be a long haul for us. So we better be prepared, and we need to inform the women what are the things they can do, yeah, to make sure that we assist in the recovery process.
Right. Okay. So
okay, continue.
versus response. Yeah. Okay. With not much time left on the clock, Tan Sri, but I really want to get all I can out of you. Female-headed households also the most affected in COVID. We talk about from a social impact, financial impact point of view. Also, you're looking at frontliners who are, many are women. They are also caregivers, caretakers, nurturers. They're also
Exactly.
mothers.
They also have
And there's
children. Mm.
That's right. And there is an element of a burnt out syndrome, which we of course know already,
Exactly.
to frontliners. But what more to women frontliners? Is there a need for more psychosocial support?
Yes, that's what we are trying to do now. Last year it was more just about impact and please quickly help the women create jobs, give welfare, aid and so on. That was what we were concerned about. But now it's more about addressing the people who are at the front lines. Everybody actually. And after a year, of lockdowns and particularly health personnel who are risking their lives because they are in the front line and they also have families, they are really totally burnt out, I think, a lot of them. So I think we need to look not just at the personal protective equipment, which we also participated in giving to hospitals and so on last year, but we feel like now psychosocial support is very important. The TTIS, the support system, including governance, that has to be strengthened. And I think in the recovery process, the voices of women have to be very strong. I hope the government will take note of this, that you have committees, you have task force, make sure you have representation, women who can bring the voices from the ground, what's really happening on the ground. Like, for example, you have big vaccine centers. A lot of the women have difficulty going unless they have transport, or you have mobile units. So these are the kind of input we can give very early so that it doesn't come late, like you do mobile vaccination a little bit later. It should have been early because vaccination now is very important for the recovery phase. And we are going all out to encourage the women and their families to get vaccinated because no matter what people say, at least there is something there, let's not go into the controversy about vaccine and the pros and the cons. And let's believe that people have tested it, it's safe, it works. Whatever it is, it works up to whatever percentage. Let's be protected. It's very important to get this message out. It's very important to get psychosocial support. I think counseling is very important for health workers. They're really, they're counseling each other. I know them. I know from my background. I'm a doctor, and doctors are helping nurses, nurses are helping nurses, nurses are helping doctors among themselves. Why don't we give them proper professional support? And I think this should be done in all the hospitals, in all the units that are handling COVID, where they can go to and talk about their frustrations. Suicide is rising, and
That's right. That's right. I have to jump in at this point. These are such important topics, and I'm sure that they will all be also addressed in the webinar, the half-day webinar happening tomorrow. I just want to bring up that poster for viewers to see. You can scan that QR code. Of course, you can visit the NCWO website or social media pages as well to get more information on the webinar. The theme is Wanita Berjuang Menghapus COVID-19, Women on the Front Lines. Tan Sri, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you for flying not just our national flag up high, but also for women all around the country. Hari Wanita happening on the 25th of August. At this point of time, I'd like to now wheel in Professor Dr. DENISON Jayasooria to talk a little bit on the call for cooperation, national cooperation. Hi, Prof. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm fine. Are you able to hear me?
I can hear you well. I can see you well, and and I'm excited to get started. Now, prior to the appointment of the new Prime Minister, our ninth Prime Minister, who's of course first day of office was just this week, many opine that Malaysia was so very needs a huge reset button. As we close into National Day, Hari Kebangsaan, it seems timely, but how can we ride this wave out of COVID and economic uncertainty on the back of also having a new Prime Minister and the government?
Yeah, I think the lockdowns and the COVID pandemic in the way it hit us with a large number of COVID cases rising, as well as the death toll going up, built in a pessimistic picture for most of us, with the economy down, jobs, and things of this sort. So I think with Parliament and the kind of contestation that has taken place, and with some form of change that has come about, I think there is some hopefulness for it. Yet there is a lot of apprehension, because in many ways it looks new, but it's actually the old, and so forth. The new leadership has to show that they would build a new Malaysia, or build back the old Malaysia with greater sense of unity and cooperation among the different political actors in the country. Because if we know it, among parliamentarians itself, out of the 220, it's something like 51% in the current government and 49 in not in government. So it's almost 50-50. And that creates a kind of uncertainty, and the kind of shouting matches has resulted in some depressive feeling that there is very little hope. And I think this is where, with Merdeka, with a new prime minister, and with the Yang di-Pertuan Agong playing a very, very strong mediating role at the national level, has sought, and it will only be time will tell, with COVID cases coming down, with increase of vaccination, with the opening up of the space.
Prof, we speak of time, and people, we've gone through a lot in this past, what's close to 2 years now. In the study of your expertise, what are some of the long-term effects of what we've gone through, and what must happen for society to come together as we talk about unity, we talk about recovery, resilience, and building back better?
I think one is, it showed our vulnerability. You might be rich, you might have access to private hospital, you might have all the resources, and yet you are struck down and helpless before COVID in that sense. Health hazard, or your economy was doing well, your business, like your tourism or flight company, and everything goes crashing down. So our vulnerability is one thing, and that's worse off for someone who has very little savings, that could only see them through 1 month or 2 months, and now the lockdown is a long period of time without social protection and so forth. So the vulnerability, health, economy, safety in that sense is a key issue on things that we thought will never take place in our lifetime, because our generation now has not gone through a world war or a famine or an earthquake of that kind. Second, I think there is an increasing distrust to political leadership, because they are seeing that the political leadership is not really taking on concerns of ordinary people during this period. While there is political rhetoric, but the kind of political behavior that we have seen, especially with the parliament, with unaccountability, with the kind of questioning, with the jumping, which most Malaysians, irrespective of whom they voted for, are now saying, where are the leaders of our nation? Where are the academicians, the professionals, the good people of our society? Because it seems to be going wrong. Not that we don't have enough doctors, lawyers, professionals, media people. Take all the social media and even the documentary, whether it's in different medias that I'm hearing, are very sound points. But yet, politicians tend to be driven by certain agenda that the royalty is calling, review it. People on the ground are saying, look, we are in a war time. Treat it as a war. Put differences aside and work
Which is why, Prof, I'm just going to jump in here quickly. We only
Sure.
have a minute left on the clock, perhaps
Sure.
even less. You say moderation and cooperation. That's the way forward.
Yes, I would think so, that it doesn't matter who is the prime minister now. It went on whom the king found that had the majority, 114. It will be tested in parliament when they meet. I think he will hold that majority, but it now calls for him, with the tradition that he is in and the experience and the challenge, to set a new agenda, not just in his cabinet, because people have raised questions on his recovery council, the COVID council. What kind of powers would they have? Would it have independent powers? Could it really be under parliament that is reformed in a way that will bring back confidence for the people, but more so, uplift the economy, bring the death rates low, increase vaccination? They have a 6 months to 8 months agenda. Forget about the long term for the moment. Take us out of this tunnel. And he then has the mental of leadership, and it's then him and his core team that then needs to bring the professionals. The civil service has a large number of well-qualified PTD officers, KSUs, director generals,
Prof,
professionals.
we'll have to get you back on another slot. On another day you have time.
I'm sure there's a lot to
much
talk.
pick your brains about. Thank you very much for weighing in and sharing your perspective, as well as how
All
we
the best.
can build back better. Selamat Hari Merdeka, and we'll speak to you
Same.
soon.
Thank you. Selamat Hari.
Of course, that was our guest weighing in on a call for cooperation and moderation as we try to recover and come out of this pandemic. Professor Dr. DENISON JAYASOORIA. Ratnam will be joining me shortly to talk a little bit about what's going on across the world in a snapshot of international news. But as we finish the Olympics in Tokyo, it's now Paralympic Games that's underway today. For this edition, 22 Malaysian Paralympians will take up the challenge in 9 different sports. Now, 5 years ago, 3 Malaysian athletes made history when they brought home 3 gold medals from the 2016 Rio Paralympic Games. It was the first time as well Malaysia had experienced the glitter of gold since participating in the Games in the 1972 edition in Germany. Well, we're here hoping and wishing all our Paralympians the best, and we will be cheering them on just as we did our national athletes as well. Bringing in Gerard Ratnam to tell us a little bit about what's going on internationally. Gerard?
Hi, Jessy. Well, Paralympics, that's the buzzword for the week. I guess we've been doing a lot of supporting online or social media with regards to the Olympics. Let's do better with regards to our Paralympians who are on their way to hopefully bring us back something. Even if they don't come back with something, it's a spirit that we should look into and look forward to with regards to moving forward in the country.
Absolutely.
Now, look at what's happening internationally. Very quickly, New York State is set to have its first female governor. Jess, you're just talking about female and the representation of female. That's going to be happening because Andrew Cuomo's resignation takes effect at the same time. So New York Lieutenant, her name is Governor Kathy Hochul. She will replace Cuomo as New York governor until the term ends in 2022. Cuomo announced his resignation 2 weeks ago after a report by independent investigators appointed concluded that Cuomo sexually harassed multiple women from 2013 to 2020. No shock or no surprise there. In the meantime, U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the United States is engaging with the Taliban on a daily basis as the ongoing Afghan evacuation faces the August 31st deadline. Also, Japan will send 3 military aircraft to Afghanistan to evacuate its citizens and local personnel. Japan is closely cooperating with the US and other countries, and this is to help with the safe and quick evacuation of those who are wishing to leave Afghanistan at this point. And in Brazil, firefighters fought a blaze in Juqueri State Park in the state of Sao Paulo. According to local authorities, dry weather and high temperatures helped with the spreading of the fire. Now, fire authorities say there are 3 active fires and more than 1,200 hectares already have been burnt down. Also, in New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern yesterday extended New Zealand's strict nationwide COVID-19 lockdown, saying the current outbreak of the Delta variant of the coronavirus had not yet peaked. That's all we have in our international segment, our snapshot, right here on the Midday Update. It's back to you, Jess.
Thank you, Gerard. Of course, Gerard Ratnam there with international news. Lots happening around the world, but what's happening in the world of Twitter? Well, Paralympians have departed to Tokyo, and Malaysians are excited, of course, to see Malaysia, our athletes in action. So a lot of buzz about that happening over Twitter as well as on Undi 18. Malaysians are thrilled for Undi 18 as people behind Undi 18 are promoting the young people to start learning more about politics and politic literacy. So if you're interested in that part as well, please do follow Undi 18 and just be in the know of what's trending, what's happening in our country. But for a brief and a quick update, of course, I'm always here on the Midday Update to give you the very latest on what's happening within our country. Hey, look, a quick reminder, get vaccinated, wear your mask, double mask if you have to, stay home, save lives. Malaysians have also been told to brace for wet days in most parts of the country this week. Yes, the rainy season is here. According to the Malaysian Met Department, there will be rain and thunderstorms daily in Selangor, Negeri Sembilan, Melaka, Perak, Kelantan, Terengganu, Pahang, Johor, and even all over East Malaysia all this week. Kuala Lumpur in the city centre, we expected to see a few sunny days, but there will be thunderstorms in several places over the week. Well, if anything changes, us and the thunderstorms and the rain does seem to follow us wherever we go. But hey, everything is, I guess you say, all's fair in love and war. So there's a bit of everything happening in our lives. Do take care and reach me if you'd like to share any information or have any story that you would like me to highlight. You have an opinion, I can be reached over Twitter. My handle is Jessy Chahal. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place. In the meantime, stay safe and take care. Bye-bye.